Okay, welcome back. Now we're on video number 2. And video number 2, I'll go back, it starts with example number 1. In example number 1, we're going to start by identifying or finding slope and y-intercept from equations. So, for the first one, you have y equals negative 4x minus 2. And remember, the slope-intercept form equation is y equals mx plus b. And this equation itself tells you the slope and the y-intercept. And if you look at this one, it's actually is in y equals mx plus b form. And the slope is always the number in front of x. So m, the slope, is negative 4. And remember, slope, I would like you to always write in fraction form. So in fraction, it would be just negative 4 over 1. And we got to find the y-intercept. Y-intercept is always the number after x. So m, the slope, is before x. B, the y-intercept, is after x. And if you can look at this one, b is negative 2. The number after x is negative 2. So in this case, b, which is the y-intercept, I'm just going to write it short, is negative 2. And you could say, wait a minute, that's weird because b is plus b. It's positive b. This one is negative 2. How is that a y-intercept? Well, that's because there's actually invisible plus sign. So if I rewrite this in a different color, it's actually y equals negative 4x plus negative 2. And if you see it this way, it's very obvious that now slope n is negative 4 and b is negative 2. It's more obvious this way. You can tell that m is 4, b is negative 2, but math people are lazy. They don't want to write plus minus, so they just put one huge minus sign. But then it's still b is equal to negative 2. So just look at the number after x, and that whole number itself will be b, which is the y-intercept. And instead of writing b equals negative 2, we're going to translate this into a point. And y-intercept is when x is 0. Remember from the notes, it's always 0, comma, number for the y-intercept. Let me go back. And we said y-intercept is when x is 0. It's a 0, comma, number. So for this one, if our y-intercept is negative 2, it's going to be 0, comma, negative 2. So our y-intercept is 0, comma, negative 2, and slope is negative 4 over 1. Now the next one, it's y minus 5 equals 3 over 2x. And for this one, it's y minus 5 equals. We need y equals. So let's drop a line in the middle. We need to get rid of minus 5 by adding 5 both sides. Then negative 5 cancels out. So you have y equals. Now 3 over 2x and 5 are not like terms. So we're going to write them just as it is. So 3 over 2x plus 5. And now you can tell that this is now in y equals mx plus b form. N is 3 over 2, so the slope is 3 over 2, and it's already in fractions, so we can stop there. And b is 5, and again, y-intercept is 5, but then if you write it in a point, it's 0, comma, 5. So we found the y-intercept and the slope for this problem, and that's the end of the first example. Alright, now let's move on to example 2. In example, and starting example 2, we're going to be graphing. And we're going to be graphing equations in this slope-intercept form, which, again, let's write it so we can remember better. Y equals. mx plus b. And you probably remember this because we did an activity together last time. You need 2 points to find the slope. And you need a point and the slope to draw a line. So if you're trying to graph this y equals negative 3x plus 3, we need a point. We need to find a point from this equation, and we need to find a slope. So first, let's find the y-intercept. That's always the first step, and I'm writing the steps for you. The first step to graphing slope-intercept form is to plot the y-intercept b. If you have y equals negative 3x plus 3, your equation m is negative 3, right? And b is positive 3, the y-intercept. So in this one, our y-intercept b is 3. And again, I would like you to turn it into a point. And y-intercept is always when x is 0, so it's going to be 0, 3. We found the point. And we have one, just like we need it. So next is to find a slope. And the slope is the m we know from slope-intercept form. So m we already found is negative 3. So if m is equal to negative 3, we want to turn it into a fraction again, and it's going to be negative 3 over 1. And we're going to use that in this point to graph y equals negative 3x plus 3. Now, we're going to take a moment to create an xy coordinate. So please make sure you label the axes and label some of the numbers inside the grid and plot the points. And let's try graphing it on your own first, okay? So pause the video and label the axes and graph on your own. Okay, so I'm going to start with labeling the axes, and now I'm going to plot the y-intercept, which is at 0, 3, because b is 3. So 0 and up 3, that is my y-intercept. And I'm going to use a slope to find my next points, and the slope is negative 3 over 1. And that means if the numerator is negative, then you're going down 3, because it's the vertical shift, and the denominator is positive, so it's right 1. And on the points starting at 0, 3, you just have 1 point, and we're going to use a slope to find all the other points. So then starting here, we're going to go down 3, right 1, that's the next point, down 3, right 1, down 3, right 1. If you want to go backwards, opposite will be up 3, left 1. So up 3, left 1, and we're going to connect the lines. And there we have it. I have the line, I labeled the line, I named the line with the equation y equals negative 3x plus 3. I started with the y-intercept point, and I used the slope to find all other points, connected, and draw a line. Alright, now, to get the full credit, we need to do the last part of this problem, which is to identify the x-intercept. X-intercept is when the graph crosses the x-axis. So this purple line graph is crossing the x-axis at that point. So the x-intercept is right there. And x-intercept is when y is 0. And if you know how to read this point, you just know that the point here is 1, 0. Or we know that x-intercept is when y is 0. So since x value is at 1, we put 0 for the y. So our x-intercept, which I'm just going to write as x-inter, is 1, 0. And that's the last part of this example. Alright, so the last example, it's a real-life application. Okay, so I'm actually going to cover this part up right here. Okay, so let's say The cost y in dollars of taking a taxi x miles is y equals 2.5x plus 2. We need to graph the equation and interpret the y-intercept and the slope. So again, to graph an equation, slope-intercept form equation, we need a point, which will be the y-intercept, right? Just like we did in the previous example. We need a point. Sorry, I can't really write very well with this. And we need a slope. Well, this equation is already in y equals mx plus b. So our slope is 2.5 and our y-intercept is 2. So if our y-intercept, let's start with that, is 2. And again, y-intercept is when x is 0. It's always 0 comma number. So if you turn it into a point, it's going to be 0 comma 2. And the slope, which is n, is going to be 2.5. But again, I always recommended you to change slope to a fraction form, and we're going to have to translate 2.5 into a fraction. If you notice, 0.5 is a half. So this one actually is 2 wholes and a half, and you just got to turn this into an improper fraction. So basically you're multiplying the denominator and the whole number, and you add the numerator. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So 5 is a numerator, and denominator stay the same, so just 5 over 2. And we just need to put these all together in this graph. Now when you're graphing this, and I will let you graph on your own, you need to make sure that this is only the first quadrant. You're only graphing the first quadrant, and how do I know that? It's because the x value is in miles, and you can't have negative miles. You can't have negative distance. So we only need to look at positive x values. So meaning this whole thing is going to be one quadrant, it's going to be x, and this whole thing is going to be the y-axis here. And you need to label them all with numbers, and I would like you to just graph the point and the slope on your own. Alright, so let's come back to this and let me show you how to graph this again. So you're starting with the y-intercept, and again I have all the axes labeled. And the y-intercept is 0 comma 2, so on the y-axis I put a point at 2. And I'll try to use orange for that. And then we use a slope. The slope is 5 over 2, which means you go up 5, and positive 2 means right 2. So I don't have a lot of room. So then starting here, I'm going to go up 5 and right 2. That's the next point. Up 5, right 2. That's the third point, and use a ruler to connect them. Alright, so I have y equals 2.5x plus 2 graph on this xy coordinate. So I'm done with part A. Now part B, it says to interpret the y-intercept and the slope. Interpret means to explain what it means. So we need to explain what 0 comma 2 means, and we need to explain what 5 over 2 slope means in this problem. Now, so if I have the explanation, I need to explain both the slope and the y-intercept. If the y-intercept is 0 comma 2, and we know that the x-axis isn't the x comma y, and the x-axis is the miles. So it means you have 0 miles. And 0 miles means the taxi hasn't gone anywhere. You have not driven any miles. And the y value is the cost, so the 2 stands the cost, which is in dollars. So basically, at 0 miles of riding the taxi, you're paying $2. And what does it mean you travel 0 miles? It means you haven't gone anywhere. So before you leave or before you ride the taxi, just for getting in the taxi and just for calling the taxi, you need to pay $2. And I said 0,2, the y-intercept means before you drive, you have to pay $2. Now the next part is the slope. And slope is always change in y over change in x. And our y value is the cost. So this one is change in cost, and the x is miles, so you have change in miles. And our slope is 5/2. So that means for 2 miles, you're paying $5, right? So your explanation will look something like this for slope. 5/2 means for every 2 miles, you pay $5. Now, if you're traveling 4 miles, then you need to pay additional $10. 6 miles, additional $15. But again, even if you don't ride anywhere with the taxi, even if you travel 0 miles, just for getting the taxi, you have to pay $2. And then it's $5 for every 2 miles. Alright, so that's the end of Unit 4.3. If you have any questions, please write them down or so that you can ask Ms. Park next time. And again, if you write any questions down, notations, highlights, I will give you extra credit. If you did not understand anything, if you missed something, please go back to the video. Alright, that's the end. Thank you.